Good evening and welcome. Thank you for being here. My name is Todd Battle. If we haven't met, I'm the president of the Kenosha Area Business Alliance. It's my honor and privilege to welcome you here tonight for this candidate forum. First of all, I want to say thank you to Uline and their team for hosting us and allowing us to have this event here. Also want to thank Kenosha News and their managing editor, Pete Wicklund, who I'm going to turn the microphone over to in a minute. He's going to moderate tonight's forum. But again, thank you for being here. It's a very good opportunity to, hear from the candidates that are running for this position. As we all know, a very important position. We consider tonight a little bit of a job interview for what is a very important position in our county. This person's the chief executive officer of an institution that has a nearly $300 million budget, 1,000 plus employees, and provides services to 170,000 residents. So it's very important that we hear from the candidates and learn a little bit about their visions and views for this office. And so again, thank you for being here. I'm going to turn the mic over to Pete Wicklund, and we're going to get tonight's forum started. Pete?
All right. Thank you, Ted. Good evening and welcome to tonight's candidate forum for the Tuesday, February 15th primary election. The primary will narrow the field to 2 candidates who will advance to the April 5th general election. And then the winner of that election will become our next county executive and top county official. Tonight's forum, as we already noted, was coordinated through KABA, and I'd like to thank Todd and his staff for all their help in getting everything ready for tonight. And I'd like to thank Uline for the use of their facilities. Before we get down to business tonight, I just wanted to thank our candidates for their participation and for their decision to seek public office. While many get fixated on the politics at the state and national level, I believe it is important that we all remember that it's local government that has the greatest impact on our daily lives. I also hope that your decision to run for office will inspire others to seek public office in the future, and especially that our young people will follow your lead in learning about local government and come to know the importance and rewards of community service. And now let's meet our candidates. From my left, Jerry Gulley of Pleasant Prairie. He serves as a supervisor of county board for District 16, which basically is Southeast Pleasant Prairie. He works as a health technology executive and entrepreneur. Next is Samantha Kerkman of Salem Lakes. She has served as state representative for Assembly District 61 since 2001. And before that was the administrative aide to former state rep Floyd Porter. And then we have Rebecca Matoska-Mentink of Pleasant Prairie. She has served as the elected clerk of courts since 2007. And before that was the office manager for the district attorney's office. So with that, we'll start with opening statements from the candidates. And they will have no more than 3 minutes to make their statements, and we'll start with Supervisor Gulley.
Thank you. I'm going to set my own timer. I tend to go a little bit long. As you said, thank you tonight to KABA, to the Kenosha News, to Uline for hosting us in this beautiful facility tonight. Thank you to those people who have joined us in person, and thank you to those who are watching it remotely, and even those people who may be watching this later on as a recording as you prepare to go vote on February 15th. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself, a little bit about why I'm running for this office, and a little bit about what I would be looking for if I were sitting in your seats tonight as the hiring committee for this position. I am someone who loves to cook, and I know that sounds like an odd thing to say at a political rally, but it matters to me, and I believe it's part of why I like to bring people together. I believe you can solve so many things when you bring people together and you break bread with them. I'm also someone who is a great neighbor, and I'm someone who's a great friend. But you're not here tonight to hire a neighbor or a friend. You're here to hire a county executive. And the role of county executive calls for an executive, not a partisan politician. I've got over 25 years experience in health technology, healthcare, and public health policy. I'm also the only candidate sitting up here tonight who has actually served in the legislative branch of Kenosha County. About a year ago, serving as a Kenosha County Supervisor, I was sitting in a meeting of the Kenosha County Human Services Committee, And oftentimes we're called upon to look at budget items. So this is not the approval process, this is more the management of that budget. And staff had come to us and said that there was a $10 million line item that was going to be 10% over at the end of 2021. So $10 million line item, 10% over that would be $1 million. My business mind looks at that and would say, what are the levers leading into that? So in this case, it was the cost of court-mandated out-of-home placements for minors in our community. So there's kids that go into foster care, into treatment facilities, and my mind looks at that and says, what are the contributing factors? Is the issue that we have more kids going into the system? Is it that the kids are staying in treatment facilities longer? Is it that the treatment facilities are costing more? In the absence of that, it's very, very difficult to optimize a solution. And I found it incredibly frustrating that a culture of that type of data was not typically employed with regards to making those decisions. Layering on top of that, the data that we were talking about was actually kids' lives and kids that were dealing with incredibly traumatic events that I don't want to think about, but I can only begin to think about. That was when I realized the true enormity of this role and the fact that this role calls for two very important criteria: a public servant's heart and an executive's business acumen. I'm the candidate that has those two criteria. I hope that you will see that tonight, and I hope that you will see that as you continue to learn more about me between now and February 15th, because I'm asking you to hire me to be your next county executive.
Representative Kerkman.
All right, good evening and thank you to Kenosha Area Business Alliance, and Pete Wicklund from the Kenosha News, and Mr. and Mrs. Uline for hosting this event tonight. I'm a lifelong resident of Kenosha County, where I'm currently raising my two sons. I'm a graduate of Wilmot High School and of UW Whitewater, where I majored in political science and minored in criminal justice. Over the last 20 years, I have made a difference for Wisconsin and for the people of Kenosha County as a state representative. I've served on many committees and have chaired 3. I have worked on 11 state budgets and worked with 5 different governors. I have collaborated with colleagues from across the aisle and across the state. I have built relationships based on trust and respect and the understanding of all branches of government at all levels of those I represent. When there is a problem, people reach out to me to solve it. In 2008, a tornado tore across the county. In 2017, there was flooding. And more recently, during the 2020, there was a civil unrest. I was ready. I helped local leaders bring the resources from the state and federal government to our community. My many years have been exciting and rewarding and have brought a wealth of knowledge and experience. Now it's time for me to bring that experience and dedication here to the county that I love. I've been attending many events and have been knocking on hundreds of doors over the past few months. And the most important issues that residents are bringing to me are concerns about keeping our community safe, investing in our infrastructure while maintaining our quality services and protecting our pocketbooks. I firmly believe that my experience and my passion and dedication I bring to public service is the best suited to build on our strengths and the successes of our past and make Kenosha County even better. So again, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here tonight.
And Clerk of Courts, Matoska-Mentink.
Hi, again, thank you. I'll echo those statements of gratitude for hosting the event and everyone being present online and in person. Well, like my opponents, I too love Kenosha County. I was born here, I was raised here, I live and work here, I've raised my family here. I too have 2 children, an adult son, Tony, he's a physical therapist. I have a special needs daughter, Chrissy, and my daughter's very engaged in our community here. While working here, I was able to obtain my master's degree in business management. And I continued to immerse myself in our community. In 2007, since 2007, I've been your elected clerk of court. servicing a large department with over 40 employees and managing and implementing a budget of over $5 million. Prior to that, I was the office manager in the district attorney's office, again, implementing and managing a budget of over $2 million. Prior to that, I worked as an employee in the child support agency. And before that, I worked in the public sector, the private sector, bringing those experiences forward with me into the public sector of county government so that I could have good experiences, learning from the past and moving forward to the present. Personally, I've dedicated myself to our community as well. I'm currently serving on the Board of Trustees for Gateway Technical College, one of the prime places in Kenosha, Walworth, and Racine to have engaged citizens advancing their educational opportunities and obtaining family supporting jobs. I also serve on local nonprofit organizations such as the Kenosha Achievement Center and the Hope Council on Alcohol and Other Drugs. For over 2 decades, I've also served on state committees such as the Child Support Enforcement Education, the Clerks of Court Association, and the Wisconsin Counties Association. Talking with those other 72 counties, I brought their best practices and tried to implement them here in Kenosha, especially to applications where they most definitely apply. My experience and tenure working in a management position in Kenosha County, managing multiple budgets, provide me with the strongest background, knowledge, and experience to give Kenosha County government a step forward. And I am so excited to be your next county executive. Again, thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight.
All right, well, thank you very much, candidates. And at this time, we'll be going on to some questions that were submitted in advance. But before we do that, I just wanted to remind our audience that you'll have an opportunity to ask some questions as well. If you'd like to, you can text them to the number that's on the stickers on your tables. And for those of you watching the forum virtually, you were given instructions on how to do that in your meeting reminder. So at this time, we'll get to the questions, and each candidate will have a minute 30 to respond to the questions. So we're ready for the first one, and I think we'll start with Representative Kerkman and just keep going round table like that. So Representative, what is your personal vision for Kenosha County in the next 10 to 20 years? And how would you see our county looking different?
Gosh, well, first off, let's build on our successes. And we are standing at one of them. I always tell people that one of my most difficult votes back in 2008 was being here in Kenosha County in this particular building, because during that particular year, Pleasant Prairie had wanted to annex the land that's over here. And they had to come to us here in Madison and reach out to us to expand the land over here. So I think that building on successes like Uline, where Pleasant Prairie was successful in this whole, in the county. When you look at where our county is going into the future, you look at building on things like economic development, our community, our strengths, our education, and making Kenosha County a better place to live. And these are the types of things that I have brought forth. The Uline Job Creation Bill of 2008 was valuable. The TIF bill that came in 2011 was the next phase. And then other things for Kenosha County, I think for Summers and the other areas of Kenosha County were really important. Thank you.
So who would have ever thought 10, 20 years ago that Kenosha would look like it is? So my vision for Kenosha is the development in the city of Kenosha and to collaborate with the city on the Kin neighborhood, the Uptown Loft projects. Take a look at the advancements and the progress we've made in our business parks here. We have Lakeview, Salem Business Park, the Bristol Parks, in addition to all the growing sectors around Pleasant Prairie. So I envision full capacity at those because continued economic growth and development is key. I foresee a very strong KABA continuing to offer their incentives and investment opportunities for all the corporate partners. I also see continued commitment from our larger corporate people, such as Uline and Haribo, in investing in our community and making it a more attractive place with additional amenities and supplementing the things that our municipalities provide, such as the Recplex. So, but we also have to focus on community services, those services that are expected from us, helping our citizens with the hand ups. And we have to go somewhere with our racial diversity and inclusion processes. That's not uncommon to the private sector, and it's very common in the public sector. And we need to make progress on that and start making action plans.
Supervisor Gulley?
I mean, I think my vision is pretty simple. I have a son who's with me here tonight, and this is all worth it if I get to embarrass him, who's from Berlin. And when he arrived here in August, he knew about Kenosha long before he arrived. And his perception was not good. And we, in a short amount of time, will be able to pivot that to a place that people know not for what happened here, but for what we've done since then. Not only increasing our economic development base, but increasing our quality of life, which is also dramatically tied to increasing our economic development. And I want us to be a place where people live, play, work to the utmost of their ability. One of the things that we do as a county, we have a multiple number of master plans. So we have one for parks and open spaces. We have one for land planning. Those are all about 10 to 12 years old. And when they were created, they had an end date of about 2035. Things have changed dramatically in our infrastructure, and the needs for technology as part of infrastructure. And so in my first year, those plans are going to be reevaluated, and we will have a consensus of community members and staff and the county board to redo those plans moving forward. Thank you.
Our next question will start with Clerk of Courts, Matoska-Mentink. And the question is, what do you view as Kenosha County's greatest strengths and what are its challenges?
Well, our greatest strength is definitely right now our AAA bonding. Our county executive and our county board, both past and present, worked very steadfastly and diligently in obtaining that AAA bond rating. And that's just going to continue to grow our economic growth, to advance our economic growth and attract businesses. Those businesses will provide for family growth here. And so that's definitely one of our biggest growths. And the room for opportunity. Part of the Kenosha Seal is agriculture, manufacturing, and people, and we can't overlook that agricultural side. I know a lot of our focus here being at KABA is going to focus on our business side, but we cannot forget our agricultural component as part of Kenosha County. Those are probably two of our most important strengths, is our people and our ability to grow a strong finance area. Thank you.
I would first and foremost say our people. I've had the privilege of living several different places across the country, as keeps getting brought up. I'm not born and raised here, but this is the first place I've ever called home. And that is literally because of the quality of people that we have here. Hardworking, smart, people that will do anything for you. And that asset actually is what enables us to do the level of economic development and company recruitment that we have to do. We also have to invest in our population to keep them healthier, to keep them present, keep them robust, to make sure we have enough mental health resources, because without that, we can't extend and increase our economic development. The more people we bring here, that will have impacts on our infrastructure. So it's all very integrated. That's definitely what I think the biggest asset is.
Our biggest asset are our people, as has been mentioned, but we need to build on that. We can't have people here if we don't have strong economic development. We need good housing in Kenosha County and our values as well. Our parks are, you know, last night I said, our parks are such a wonderful asset to our county. In addition to, we have gems like Brookside. You know, we spent $106 million in our human services here in Kenosha County. $106 million out of a $305 million budget. 21 million of that goes directly to Brookside. And COVID took a hit on Brookside. We need to look at those gems that we have in the county, like our parks, Brookside, and our people. And we need to build on those successes going forward. Like I said, we need to bring in as these companies like here in Uline or NASCO or Nexus or Haribo or what, you know, the other companies that are coming. We need to have that workforce here and ready to go forward into the future.
Very good. Our next question will start with Supervisor Gulley. What are 3 things you wish to accomplish at the county as the county executive of Kenosha County within your first 6 months in office?
So job number 1 is securing our current workforce. The county has almost 1,100 employees. Like every other company, we are currently faced with huge staffing issues, retention issues. We will never be able to compete with private companies with regards to compensation, but we will be able to compete with regards to culture. And so building a culture where our employees know that they are valued, know that there are career paths, that is the first and foremost job, because we cannot deliver all of those services, many of which are statutorily mandated, if we don't have the amazing staff that we have. And I've spent a lot of time talking to department leads, department heads, and almost all of them will mention 1 or 2 employees that they feel like are right on the edge because of everything that's happened the past 2 years. And the loss of 1 employee with regards to turnover, having an absent position for any length of time, huge cost to us. We can't do that. Secondly, I would love to democratize and socialize the number of appointments that the county executive makes to boards, commissions, and committees. This is something like 40 or 45 every year. The system currently is terribly outdated and antiquated. I challenge anyone to go to kenoshacounty.org and try to figure out what the commissions are, when the terms are up. I believe those should be competitive, and I believe that they should represent the incredible diversity of our community. And then lastly, we've already spoken about the AAA bond rating. I work with municipalities across the country, and the only thing worse than never achieving that bond rating is achieving it and then being downgraded, because that downgrading has an incredible cascading halo effect, presenting bad image. And so we absolutely have to manage that algorithm that is going to maintain that bond rating, which is our ability to borrow, our cash on hand, our long-term forecasting ability, and our day-to-day management. Those would be my top.
Supervisor, we reached our time limit. Representative Kerkman.
Thank you. The first 3 things that I'd like to do if I was elected county exec would be, first off, is the budget. It's a $305 million budget. The 2 main areas are human services, public safety, and then infrastructure. Things that I'd like to do is go out and actually ask the people. We do budget listening sessions in the state. The governor's done them. I think asking the people of Kenosha County what they feel and how their money should be spent is important. Then I'd like to work with our department heads. Again, I know many of them. I've worked with some of them because, again, county government is an arm of state government. So many times we're passing money through. When you look at that human services budget, it's $106 million, but most of it comes from the state and federal government. So again, you have to depend on who's going to be at the state to how much money certain areas of the county budget is going to get. I'd like to, Supervisor Gulley has mentioned in the past a dashboard on the local level. I actually helped pass one for the state. We have a very easy state dashboard site that you can go to and take a look at where we're spending and where our revenues are coming from. Very easy to navigate. I'd like to do that as well on the county level, to bring that transparency out to people. So again, they can be home looking on their computers and again, just click on a button and see where their $305 million is going. Again, I know that's going to take a little bit of time to do with that one in particular, but we should be able to turn that one around.
Madam Clerk?
6 months is a very short time. It's going to go very fast for whoever comes into office. So right out of the box, I'm going to meet with the department heads. I know them, I've worked with them, but that doesn't mean that I know exactly what they do and where their priorities lie. But in addition to those department heads, they each have oversight committees on the county board. And there could be a lot of new county board supervisors. So I want to meet with our county board supervisors, find out what their goals might be, how they relate to the department heads' goals. As both of them indicated, the budget. That budget starts right away. In April, our IT budgets come out and everything trickles in after that to be presented in the fall to the county board. So right out of the bat, you got to start looking at that. Where are grants going to be cut? Where are grants going to be implemented? And an increase in communication is always going to be good. As Representative Kerkman indicated, that dashboard provides a lot of information, but it's not always about where the money goes, but it's what services are being provided as well too. So increasing communication to the municipalities so there's no duplication of services, increasing communication with the county board through committees and individual supervisor meetings, and the employees as well too, because our 1,100 employees is what makes county government work, and communication with them is also frustrating and sometimes a little dismissed. So I want to appreciate that. But I'm a steward of all tax dollars, and that includes the money coming from the state, the money coming from the federal, as well as our levy tax dollars too.
Time limit there. The next question will start with Representative Kerkman. If elected, how will you work with the Kenosha County Board?
Oh gosh, well, I come from the legislative branch right now. So I understand, being a legislator, how to work with the executive branch. I've worked under 5 governors, or alongside 5 governors. All of them had different styles. And so one of the things that I would like to bring to the county board is working with all the county board supervisors. I understand that, you know, sometimes you have to sit down and have a meeting with them about a particular issue. If they chair a particular area, I want to bring them in when we're crafting the state or county budget. That's something that I wish that I would have had as a legislator, working with the governor, that I would have been able to been given that experience. I think it's very important to communicate with all the supervisors. I've reached out to many of them over the last few months. I've talked to them. I've known many of them for many years, and I would continue to do that. Like I said, I've worked across the aisle with many different of my colleagues, and I would do the same if I was the county exec. I think it's so important to really have that open dialogue between the county board supervisors. They're going to the grocery store and talking to people in their neighborhoods. I should be open and accessible to have them have that conversation, as well as, you know, working with that many different local units of government. I think that's important as well.
Clerk?
So if you stay in touch with what's going on in the county board, there's sometimes a lot of divisiveness and some anger. And that's always disappointing to me, because we should all have a common theme of doing what's right for Kenosha County, for all of the citizens. And just because we disagree doesn't mean we don't have to have a level of respect. And I try to respect everyone. I work with 8 circuit court judges, and they're not always on the same page at the same time, but at the end of the day, they get the job done. And I'm hoping that my leadership style, my communication style, and my belief in doing what's best for Kenosha County can kind of bring everybody around the same table so that we can have open discussions and reach some compromising solutions to the issues that face. If it's a grant reduction, if it's on bonding, if it's on personnel management, if it's on mid-year budget crises like we had with funding our correctional offices. Bring people together, be it individually or at the committee level, and let's all try to get along and have this positive, fantastic discussions like we're having tonight, and in a respectful way. So I'm hoping that the way I communicate with the county board is respectful, understanding, collaborative, and focusing on the problems and getting solutions made.
Supervisor Gulley.
So I'm currently on the county board. I'll be going there later tonight, and the meetings we have there are not like the meetings we're having tonight. The county board is incredibly partisan-driven gridlock. It's miserable. And if you've attended any of those meetings, you have seen that. And the reason I wanted to do this and run for this office is I believe very strongly that we need an independent, nonpartisan person in this position. And it feels as if somehow we're sitting here as if there are now 3 independent, nonpartisan people running when my opponents have both been partisan politicians for decades. And I'm assuming they're going to think that you've forgotten that you voted for them as Democrats or Republicans for a length of time. And it is just simply not true that you can have an independent, cohesive administration when you have been such a divisive politician for decades. Your circle, as you mentioned last night, is division. Robin Voss is division. Aaron Decker is part of why our county board currently is so divisive. So I think people can be whatever they want to be, but embrace it. I will work with the county board because I am that independent. And I have left county boards almost every meeting with one side or the other being very unhappy with me, because my compass is that of the citizens, and that's what I'm going to follow.
Okay, our next question will start with Clerk of Courts Matoska-Mentink. And the question is, with respect to the county budget, how would you balance the need to make investments and sustain services while also being responsible to taxpayers and controlling debt and expenditures?
That's a lot. So currently I managed a $5 million budget. Some of it, the revenues come from tax levy, some of it comes from state grants, and some of it comes from collection of fines, fees, and costs. And that concept isn't unfamiliar to broad county budget management. One of the things in terms of the full county budget is the investment in KABA. We put money forth so that they can continue a high impact fund, which draws businesses to Kenosha. KABA does a wonderful job in partnering with Kenosha County. When I've been speaking with business leaders across the county, they always acknowledge that Kenosha County gets things done. Kenosha County is a great partner, and that's going to be key to all those points that you put out into your question. How do you balance it against the debt ratio? We have a AAA bond rating, so our loans to us are at an all-time low, so that we can counter that with paying them back when interest rates are at all-time high while still maintaining our infrastructure package. And that's going to keep our citizens happy. If our roads are falling apart and we're not maintaining them, that's just going to be pushing their maintenance off into the future. If we're not maintaining our assets now, it's going to be a problem in the future. We don't want to pawn that off onto the next administration, onto the next budget cycle. And so you do have to have that fine balance, and past budget management experience, I believe I have the tool to do that.
And Supervisor Gulley.
So in addition to your question, we are going to be in an environment of increasing cost. There's no doubt. Maintaining the staff that we have is going to cost more. Goods and services that we purchase for the county going to cost more. Job number one with regards to budgeting is understanding the value of what you're getting for what you're spending. And so I would start by making sure that there are firm easy to understand metrics for most of our departments that allow us to track spend against outcome. When you have that as a baseline, you can actually start to identify where you can reduce cost, where you might want to optimize, where you can invest more if you're seeing an outcome that is superior to something else. And so that is a piece to me that is missing, that makes it almost impossible to look at our current budget and say, wow, that's too much, or that's too little. You're simply looking at an abstract number. And so that would be job one for me, and that would be delivered with the delivery of that next 2023 budget.
So when I was first elected, I chaired a committee called the Budget Review Committee. And we went through state government line by line, area by area, and reviewed each item. I would bring that to the county level. Again, like I said, our budget is $305 million, and you bring in all the directors and you have them work off the base budget, but then you have them go through it line by line and look at outcomes. I do believe in outcomes and managing things that way. So again, as the directors put forth their ideas, you have to have outcomes. Are those ideas working? Again, some of them, like in the human services area, a lot of them are state mandated. So again, you have a little room, but again, if something's not working, this is the time to eliminate it. One of the areas and things that I was piecing through the 22 budget, there's $1 million in there for the elevator out of the Kenosha community, or the Kenosha County Center. Now, I don't know if my colleague or the counterparts up here know, but there was a big debate back during John Collins and Al Keel whether or not there should be an elevator out at the Kenosha County Center. And again, I noticed it going through the CIP this time around. There's $1 million. Now, was that just thrown in there? Was that part of the plan from 5 years ago? All of a sudden it got put in there. And that's one real thing that I would like to look at and change. And again, it's going through line by line of the budget. Now I have the budget underneath the table here. I brought it with me tonight. These are those types of things that I would take a look at.
Thank you. The next question we'll start with Supervisor Gulley. And it is, how important by your viewpoint is the position of Chief of Staff? And do you have an individual planned in mind if you were elected?
So from my experience, the Chief of Staff model is actually outdated and not efficient for this office. What it does, it provides another level of approval. And so in my assessment, looking at the current staff of the county executive's office, which includes a very appropriately compensated chief of staff, an administrative assistant, and an office manager, I would change those positions and align them with the key constituencies of this office. We would have a director of county operations that would be the direct conduit for county employees. I would have a director of community development who would be that outreach person and someone who could make sure that all of our partners and agencies are delivering the right level of efficiency. And lastly, most importantly, a manager of constituent services, someone that every citizen knew this was their contact in that office, and that person would also be charged with modernizing the process of making appointments to commissions, committees, and boards. And to your last question, I have two people in mind that I think would be great for community development. I have one person I think would be great for the county operations. And of course, we would have an open hiring process for them as well.
This is a really interesting question because people have asked me about what I would do in the future under this role. And I remember when the current county exec was elected and he brought in Jenny Tunkes as his chief of staff. She brought in a different perspective. She wasn't in county government. She actually worked for the Racine Journal-Times. And as Supervisor Gulley alluded to and how the current structure is set up, I would take a deep dive look. Previously, Ben Schliesman also served at the leisure of the county exec a long time ago in that office, and that person was responsible for emergency government. That is something that's been shifted over into the sheriff's department. So I would actually like to see that particular position put back into a different role. County emergency government shouldn't just be under the sheriff's department. It should be representative of the entire county, fire, and law enforcement. Right now, it's all in the sheriff's department office. In my work with the fire departments throughout the county, I've felt that they don't always have a seat at the table. So that would be something that I would want to bring in, I think, to the county exec's office. So I have thought about that per se. For the chief of staff position, I don't have anybody in particular in mind. There's some good candidates out there, people who have approached me. But also then I would want to look at maybe more of a legal counsel aspect as well. So again, those are some things that I've thought of in the past about that particular position.
Thank you.
So currently the county executive and 3 staff members. And in my world, I don't care what the title is. You could be A, B, and C. I value each of those people and what their best talents can bring to the table. That being said, people think I have someone in mind, and I don't, because A, we're not even past primary. So how can you be learning everything and trying to pigeonhole people and making those plans? So I really don't have someone in mind. Whether or not we continue with the chief of staff, providing for that extra level, I'm not sure that really occurs, but I have open dialogues with everybody in my organization. So as I said, moving forward, there has to be an office manager. There is someone answering their phones. That's always the point of contact. Karen is a wonderful point of contact. If I see her name pop up on my phone, you best darn to it, and I'm going to be answering that. Everybody knows that Karen answers that phone call. And everybody in my administration is going to be responsible for responding to constituents promptly, timely. I do that now. I require my staff to do that as well too. So there's a lot of things that are going to happen before April 5th and April 18th when the county executive is done in terms of establishing my management team. Do I have people on a list? Obviously, yes, but there's also people up perhaps in this room who've never even approached me too. So there's a lot of talent in our community, and I look forward to getting past the primary so we can focus on moving forward.
Good, thank you. The next question will start with Representative Kerkman. As a nonpartisan position, how will you ensure that the decisions you make as county executive of Kenosha County are not unduly influenced by any one political party or view?
I live my life like that every day. I love what I get to do. And I've always represented myself and my people. It doesn't matter if a Republican or Democrat calls me. I'm going to answer that call. And I'm going to live like that. As others have said up here, I think that relationship and making things and building that trust with people, knowing that I have not been partisan. Yes, I've had to take partisan positions on certain things, but I've always reached out and listened to both sides on an issue. And a lot of times you have a lobbyist who's coming in and trying to side one thing or the other way. And you usually wind up right in the middle because that's what the people, and that's what's best for the county. And I'm always going to put the county first. We have great assets here, great assets. And I want to protect those assets like Brookside, like our parks. I want to build on our successes that we have here. You know, our roads, we have some challenges with. I want to make sure that the roads are passable. We have County Highway JB, the bridge has been out. Highway W is close to the Fox River. I'm going to advocate for our county. I want to advocate to our federal legislators to bring more resources here. That's what I've done. Anytime the county exec has called and asked me for something right now, and it's not partisan. It's not partisan. If he asks for help, I've been there to deliver.
Madam Clerk.
So I'm a constitutional officer, and as such, I had to choose a party when I ran back in 2007. But in that race, we elected, there was a contested race for sheriff. and we elected a Republican sheriff and a Democrat clerk of courts. So obviously I had crossover votes on that. In the 16 years that I've been in this office, I don't believe that there's a single decision that I've made that has been partisan played at all. I work with 8 judges and they range all across the board. And to tell you the truth, there's some that I don't know which way they lean, and that's the way our justice system should be. And so I have a wonderful primer on how to approach the role of county executive moving forward. Again, it's issue based, it's problem focused, and goal oriented. And there are services we have to provide, and those aren't partisan services. So I believe that my background, especially working in the circuit court, where I firmly believe that justice should be blind, will lead me down that path of nonpartisanship.
Okay, we'll be coming right back to you with the next question. How has your prior work experience prepared you for a new...
Excuse me.
Oh, I'm sorry,
missed.
beg your pardon.
I was like, how am I-
Somebody's paying attention.
I know you thought I answered that before.
Supervisor Gulley.
I would again just say that painful division that you see at the county board today leads people into this kind of us, them, tribal approach to things. And what you see, a good friend of mine is sitting here today who I consider one of the better people on the board. People will dismiss really good ideas if they come from someone they perceive as being the bad person. And they will excuse bad actions from someone they see as being a good person. And good means you're on my team, and bad means you're not. And I have fought against that since the day that I joined the county board. I'm going to continue to do that. And I literally cannot conceive of a way how one of my competitors who has been staunch partisan politicians can say that they're going to bring that unison. In fact, last night and tonight, one of the things I keep hearing from my competitors is, I agree with Supervisor Gulley. In a room like this, I'm able to bring people together. That is what I'm going to do when I'm your county executive.
Now we're set. Next question, how has your prior work experience prepared you for a new role as the county executive of Kenosha County?
I joined the county in 1998 in the Human Services Division, and that's at the Job Center. And the Job Center had so many departments that are an integral part of county government. We had the Facilities Division there, so I worked closely with one of the directors there. We became friends. The Department of Children and Family Services was there, and I became friends with some of those workers and supervisors. We had economic support, and so that was a big chunk of Kenosha County employees, and so my heart was there. And then after that, when I received the promotion to the office manager of the district attorney's office, I saw another segment of county government and became more familiar with the law enforcement aspect of it. And then coming over to circuit court, I was able to work with community agencies and learn that collaborative techniques of how we instill programs into our system, support our vulnerable. Additionally, I'm supervising staff. I have a staff of over 40 people. I work in conjunction with the judges to make sure that they continue coordinating their courtrooms and have what they need. And I've managed 2 separate departments, multi-million-dollar budgets, and that's key. So that prior experience, being at the, at so much of the soul of county government, is going to give me the strong backbone to progress in this position.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Supervisor Gulley.
So in addition to deep general management experience, I have deep subject matter experience in key areas of our county. We mentioned earlier that human services is the largest chunk of the county budget. I have deep experience in healthcare, in public health policy, in health literacy, and I can leapfrog over many aspects. I can tell you what the incident rates of chronic conditions are in our community and why they matter and how we can lower them. And I can tell you why they impact economic development. Having worked in technology, I can tell you if our IT department uses agile or cascade software development processes, and I can tell you why we're using the wrong one, and if we switch, we'd have a much more efficient IT department. My experience is broad, and I'm going to have impact in lots of areas of the county government, coupled with the fact that I've served in the legislature, and I understand that side of the county as well.
Representative Kerkman.
Well, I go back to my parents. Again, prior experience, I've been doing this job as a state representative for 20 years, but my prior experience is what my parents brought to me. My dad served on the county board and on the town board. He brought me to my first town board meeting, I think I was 3 weeks old. So I had my start early on in life in public service and seeing my parents. When I was in college, I worked 3 jobs. I waitressed, I did the grounds crew, and I did the books for Marina. And managing all those different things when you're a 20-year-old in college really gave me a good background from where I am today. When I was in college, I got started in the legislature as an intern. And that experience brought me in many different ways. Our former state senator, Joe Andrea, and Cloyd Porter. They used to bunk with Tommy Thompson. That's what I was brought up around. I was mentored by people who wanted to do the right things. Senator Joe and Cloyd were here in the county when our county was facing difficulties with Kreuser leaving and such. And again, that's who I look to, and that's how I built my experience. And those are the qualities that I would want to bring to the office of county exec. Hard work, dedication, working across the aisle. For as much as people want to say that I don't, I have. I have worked with the current county exec. I actually used to have a list in my office, actually called the Kreuser list.
Reach the time. Next question, we'll start with Supervisor Gulley. And it's the question is, funding and staffing of emergency services are at a critical low for all of Kenosha County. How would you work to improve this situation?
So this is like many key departments of our county right now, where we are experiencing the same sort of staffing issues that every company does. As I mentioned earlier, we unfortunately cannot compete at purely a compensation level, although I do believe that there are places that we're going to have to increase compensation. We have neighboring counties that recently made dramatic increases through some funding. And in some cases, some of our emergency services staff can leave Kenosha County, go to another county, and immediately be making $10, $12, $15 more. So we will have to address that some. More importantly, to me, it goes back to that culture and making sure that people understand there are career paths for them, they're valued here, and they are contributing to something much bigger than us. I believe we can do that through the culture, and I don't think that we have to always rely on the compensation, because we simply can't afford to do that.
Representative Kerkman.
Well, I think we have great resources right now, but we can build on those. You know, our sheriff's department, those deputies are doing a great job, working long hours. I appreciate all that they're doing right now. But it's a collaboration between joint services, between our fire and our law enforcement, I think is critical. Right now, joint services is represented by everybody east of the I. There's not somebody on that board that has that is west of the I. And I think that's a deterrent to working and seeing what are the needs west of the I when it comes to our resources. I'd like to work and bring, you know, as we look at the compensation level, we talked a lot about the $305 million budget, but we're also getting just shy of $19 million in sales tax. And I know that sales tax number is only going to increase in their years to come. And what are we going to do with those resources? Or our ARPA dollars? We are getting $33 million as well. I know some of that is accounted for, but we haven't had a conversation yet what we're going to do with those dollars. Are we going to put them into the public safety side of things? So again, these are things that going forward I'd like to look at is, again, where we're spending those dollars, and then the makeup of the board, because I think that's really important.
So there may be a perceived shortage of it, but I know that our new hires in law enforcement and in the fire services, they're coming in with just as much passion as our existing officers and fire personnel as anyone. We have a gem here in Kenosha County with Gateway Technical College in the law enforcement and their fire program. And we need to continue to allow for opportunities like that. When there used to be spots on in the law enforcement academy for people to be self-funded and put themselves through that. But right now our law enforcement agencies are taking those places away. But again, these are energized, energetic, hopeful people who are coming onto the force. COVID took a hit on the police, on the fire side of things because they weren't able to do testing. I'm on the Pleasant Prairie Police and Fire Committee. But again, every time we have interviews and we're interviewing these young individuals, they're coming in with passion, dedication, and hope that they are going to do good for our community. And that inspires me. One of my duties, one of my funnest duties currently is swearing in new deputies, and the smiles on their face and the hope in their families' hearts and the fact that they want to do good for our community is just so inspiring. And I just hope that our community re-engages and says, hey, you guys are out here doing good. Thanks for providing us the services. And I hope, you know, that I only see them in a friendly environment. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. All right, the next question, we'll start with Representative Kerkman, and the question is, Kenosha County has had a severe shortage of mental health care for many years. Mental care workers, health workers, I believe. Do you agree that this is a problem? Do you have any suggestions to correct this situation?
Mental health is a challenge across the state and here in our county. You know, on a side note, my son does want to be a psychologist, so I'm working on that into the future to solve it personally. But we do have a shortage of mental health professionals here. One of the things that I'd like to work on and has been talked about is right now when somebody is chaptered, they have to go so far out of about a 3-hour drive to actually get to a facility that can help and assist them. I know that the county has worked together over the border, just south of here, 20 minutes away with Lake Facility to provide services for people who need mental health services. We don't have to build a building. We have something that's close to us. And we now, they actually had to change the law in Illinois so that we could partner with them. So we do have a direct line of care close to home. It might not be in Wisconsin, but it's close to home. And so I hope we can build on that type of partnership going forward. But yes, we do need more mental health professionals in Wisconsin on a whole. But here locally, hopefully we can partner across the border and get the services that people need close to home.
Kenosha County has been very attentive to the shortages and the tribulations associated with mental health. And COVID has brought mental health more to the front light for so many people who who never had to deal with it before. We have gems here in Kenosha County, the Care Center, Rogers Memorial, and other private treatment providers such as kids. So I agree with Representative Kerkman that 3-hour travel for our inpatient mental health care, the mandated ones, that is troublesome because you're removing people from their core of support. And when they're released, they're coming back here. So there are issues like associated with that, and that's continued to plague our community. And we're just going to have to bring community partners to the table to go forward in that. But again, I think mental health and the treatment of it is going to change because of the number of providers, the level of education, and perhaps there's going to be more community involvement and support groups as opposed to direct treatment. And hopefully if we engage in more communications, that direct treatment component can be minimized and we can start talking and engaging with each other and keeping everybody mentally healthy at earlier stages too.
Supervisor Gulley.
You know, of all the places I've lived, we stigmatize mental health issues more in this community than anywhere else I've ever lived. We literally, at the Human Services building, we call it behavioral health. We don't even call it mental health. That may seem like trivial, but if you're someone who's in a moment of crisis and you walk into a building, you need to identify with words that represent what it is you're looking for. This is a phenomenal challenge for our community in every aspect. We most definitely have a deficit of providers. Some of that can be mitigated with access to telehealth and telecounseling. But the first thing we have to do as a community is be unafraid to say that this is a problem and we want to call it by name. And we should start talking about mental health issues much like we talk about chronic conditions, because that's what they are. And so that destigmatization has to happen simultaneously with achieving new outlets and new providers. The last thing I would say is the county's role as the keeper of public health is to be that navigator and to be that backbone, making sure that our citizens are able to navigate in and out of services very easily. Again, I would challenge you, go visit kenoshacounty.org and look at behavioral services. Tell me if you think you can follow that to figure out where you need to go for the services you need when you need them. That can most definitely be improved.
Good. The next question will start with Clerk of Courts, Matoska-Mentink. And the question is, what is your plan to address diversity, equity, and inclusion as the Kenosha County Executive? What have you done in your current position or as a candidate for County Executive to reach out to communities of color?
So last August, the county board acknowledged racism as a public health crisis. And as a result of that, they created an employee diversity task force and created a community committee to start having the conversations about what's going on. And right now, there's no action plan in place. The first piece of action, though, was that the county board did approve in this year's budget the inclusion of an equity diversity coordinator. And so right out of the box, I'm going to make sure that we put some action plans, because that's what I'm hearing in the community. So there's a lot of talk. We've been talking about this for decades. Let's put some action steps in. But it's not just what can we do it within county government. This is facing the public in the private sector too. So I would hope to collaborate and find out what methods other places are doing to be more inclusive. And that engagement, the discussions will need to continue, but we actually need to have an action plan in place. Let's start making steps. The diversity coordinator position is going to be key in that. And I look forward to working with that person and again, putting a plan, you know, let's let the rubber hit the road here. So.
Supervisor Gulley.
So I was actually asked by County Executive Kreuser to chair the work group that launched the Kenosha County Racial and Ethnic Equity Commission. That involved pulling together about a dozen citizens who would work together on the resolution that launched the commission, which means we actually looked at what communities were doing in Wisconsin and across the country. We probably examined, I don't know, 35, there are a couple of members of the work group here tonight, probably 35 or 40 different models throughout the country, leading to what we presented, which was a framework to recruit and appoint the commissioners, give them a framework to start accumulating data, gave them deliverables to provide updates and to do actual surveys and actual data analysis to tell us where we are. And even though that is a county function, it is most definitely looking at the community as a whole. It was really disappointing to me if you were part of that county budget meeting this year where the D&I position was on the table. It was one of the most divisive nights that we've had for a what ended up being, I think, a $70-some thousand position, and then fully loaded, maybe 90 or something like that. And the idea that we spent so much energy talking about a position that is commonplace.
And that's the time for that one.
Okay.
Well, social justice is important to everybody. You know, February is Black History Month, and we need to do better and do more. You know, in the legislature, this has been a very big topic of discussion over the last 2 years. You know, Speaker Voss appointed a special committee in Madison as well to look at many different aspects of this issue. Again, is it poverty? Is it education? What are those factors that lead people to go down this path? And again, data is important. I believe that we need to build on those, what the county has done, but what the state has done, because it is important to reach out and figure out what are the things that we need to build on and to make our community successful. You know, I spent a lot of time this summer in the 6 most challenging neighborhoods in Kenosha County. I picked up trash. I tried to reach out to people that weren't necessarily in my zip code, because I wanted to know what's going on in those communities and how can we build and make them stronger. Is it economic development? Is it childcare? Is it foster care? What is it those communities need to make our whole county stronger? And so that's what I would like to bring to the table, is being able to reach out and talk to other people and find out what are the needs to make them successful. Because
we've reached the time limit. The next question, we'll start with Supervisor Gulley. County Executive Kreuser is a proponent of bicycling and advanced projects to increase infrastructure and programs to encourage participation. Do you think these projects and programs should be expanded, maintained, or scaled back? Why and in what ways?
For the community, I would say they need to be expanded. For me personally, I am such an idiot on a bike. I somehow fell on the Golden Gate Bridge on a bike and fell into a canal in Amsterdam. So I'm not going to be leading that. Qualities of the county, like our public spaces, like the bike trails, which offered so much respite and so much opportunity for people during the pandemic, are a critical piece of economic development. Even if you don't see it as a value, even if you don't care about that biking, like I may not care about it, lots of people do. And those are the kind of things that are awesome tools when we're out recruiting companies to come to this area. They ask things like that. So I absolutely believe that we should enhance it. Interestingly enough, I've received emails from 3 bikers, less, I've received lots of emails, but I don't think I've had any 3 people with the same comment asking about this. And it is a huge service to the community. Now we have to do it cost effectively, and we have to make sure that we adhere to safety, but we absolutely have to continue to enhance it. It's a crowning, it's a feather in our cap.
well, I love our recreation spaces, our outdoor spaces, our Kenosha County parks. I'm down at Silver Lake Park at least 3 to 4 times a week. There is a group of people, mountain bikers, that love to use that park. Again, you can't walk on their trails. They're actually marked that way. Earlier this summer, or last summer, I got on one of those trails, and I wasn't supposed to be, because it does say no walking on there, but they're beautiful. And we need to enhance those assets. And the bike groups are very, very, very passionate. But I also want to enhance the other groups. We spend a lot of time talking about bicyclists, but there are running groups. There are schools that use our county parks for cross country, my son being one of those. And they're really important that we need to enhance them for everybody, not just one group. That's where I've heard some differences between some of the bicyclists and the running groups. I want them to be able to sit down at a table so we can collaborate and work together and find out the best usage for all of our county parks. Because it shouldn't just be just bicyclists. I think that everybody should be able to use the parks in a way that there's plenty of space for everyone.
So I grew up bike racing at the velodrome. So biking is near and dear to my heart, even though I don't do it frequently anymore. And it's nice to see the biking enthusiasts being super enthusiastic these days and so energized, because it's just wonderful. It's helped create the paths, the multi-use trails out at Pets. It's had us set up interlinking trails that head out to the Western County. And we were able to do that while we were doing road improvements. So it was cost effective. So you're just expanding the road a little bit to make sure that you have that bike lane, but creating those bike lanes enhances community safety. You don't have to worry about hitting a bicyclist going down the road. There's also talk with Thielen creating an interstate of bike trails out west. I know one of the improvements being made in Twin Lakes along Lakeshore Drive is to expand it a little bit, and it won't qualify as a bike trail, but it's going to expand more so that people can walk their dogs safely and ride their bikes a little safer without impeding on the flow of traffic, because quite often people don't obey those speed limits and they don't see those bikes. And at dusk and dawn, especially during this time of the year, people need to be able to do that after hours. So we can do that cost effectively by just adding it to some of the existing projects.
Your time limit on that one. Thank you. The next question, we'll start with Representative Kerkman. And it is Kenosha County consistently ranks in the bottom quartile on any number of public health measures. In your view, what is the role of the county and the county executive with respect to advancing public health initiatives?
Well, this is the biggest part of the budget, $106 million. We go back to that. County government is an arm of state government. When you look at the human services and you look at our outcomes in child welfare, in foster care, in the services that we as the county are directed by the state to provide, we have to make sure that we are hitting our mark. You know, I was in a committee meeting a few months ago, and the Racine County Human Services Director came up to testify regarding foster care and guardianship. They have a much better placement rate in Racine County than we do here. And so I reached out to the Racine County Human Services Office because I want to bring those practices here. Because if we can get some better outcomes, the kids can get to forever homes, be it back with their biological families or with an adoptive family going forward. And these are the things that I would like to bring to the table. Just because it's always been done this way in Kenosha County doesn't necessarily mean that that is the way we have to continue to do it, especially when you can look to other counties. Racine, Kenosha, Walworth County, Waukesha County, Brown County. I know those county execs in those areas. So again, when you look at those outcomes, making sure that we protect the most vulnerable and looking at the outcomes, to me is getting those kids to forever homes. Thank you.
So, public health has been at the forefront for the last 2 years, especially in regards to COVID responses and the vaccine clinics and everything like that. But there's more to public health than just that. It's existed before COVID and it's going to exist after COVID. So we need to continue those outreach programs, educating people, having them put trust back into some of the systems that are there to protect them. I want to segue off of Representative Kerkman's about the reunification process or establishing forever homes, and that those processes involve a lot of collaboration. Right now, in terms of our termination of parental rights cases, the district attorney's office collaborated with our DCF, Department of Children and Family Services, and the circuit court in trying to get the conclusion of some of those cases. We added an additional judge into that rotation to process those cases more quickly, more effectively, so that they did get to that path to permanency quicker. And it's that level of collaboration, communication, education, outreach, putting forth our services. Most of the people in the room don't even know what they all encompass, and that those components are just key.
Supervisor Gulley.
The question was public health, right?
Yes.
Okay. Those rankings you mentioned are conducted by the UW School of Public Health, and they're metric driven. So we do rank in the out of 72 counties in the state, we're like 62nd, 64th, respectively, with regards to outcomes and factors. And those are literally based on data, and there are algorithms that funnel into that. So incident rates of obesity, smoking rates. And so if you want to change those, and by the way, those are factors that companies look at when they are deciding where they're going to place their facilities, you have to address those metrics. And those involve, in my day job, I work in health literacy, and we have software that helps communities and companies raise health literacy of their population, which leads to better outcomes and lower healthcare costs. This is what I know how to do. We will have community-wide awareness initiatives that target those metrics, and I am completely confident that we can raise those numbers very quickly.
Very good. The next question, we'll go to Clerk of Courts, Matoska-Mentink. And the question is, what will you do to ensure that all citizens, and in parentheses here, eligible voters in Kenosha County will have the right to vote?
I have faith in our current county clerk. Education's key, registration is key, outreach is key. As county executive, I'm going to ensure that our county clerk has the resources available to her so that she can do the education to our municipal clerks who are in charge of that frontline voting. In other terms, yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do in terms of making sure. I just hope that everyone who is eligible will vote and will register to vote and vote legally.
Supervisor Gulley.
So county clerk is similar to many other elected offices in that they have management capability over departments, but their staffs are county employees that are subject to HR for the county and benefits and payroll and stuff like that. So I think it's very important to respect the authority of the county clerk who's been elected by the citizens. That county clerk is subject to state regulations the past 2 years. Those have been kind of ever changing. I'm often critical of the current county's communication tactics, plan, non-tactics. I have to say I have a lot of faith in what the county clerk does. So when running for office right now, we get incredibly detailed, frequent communication from the county clerk's office. And I know that they do the absolute best they can to communicate to people guidelines around voting, deadlines. I always believe we can socialize it more and put it in front of people. But from a budget perspective, I would absolutely support the funding needed to make sure that that department is empowered to do its job.
Representative Kerkman.
Well, elections are the foundation of our government. They're really important. You know, over the last 2 years, I've talked to hundreds of people who want to make sure their vote counts. I've had people crying. I've had people yelling at me on this particular issue. It is a difficult issue, but it is our foundation of our government. If I was elected county exec, I would think it'd be important to have our county clerk, and again, they're constitutionally elected on their own. But I would like to have a meeting between the county clerk and our municipal clerks. A lot of times information isn't shared as quickly as I think it can be, and maybe even bring down somebody from WEC, from Madison at those meetings, Because again, I think the information that's given out from them to our county clerks, to our municipal clerks, sometimes is not what state statute says. So again, if I was in the role of county exec, I'd make it one of my top priorities to make sure that every person, every single person can vote, and make sure that their vote counts by working together with those people who are on the front line. I am so proud of everybody that has stepped up to become a poll worker. You know, my mom in 2020 became a poll worker in the April election. She's always stayed away from that because she never wanted to influence anybody when they walked into the Randall Town Hall. But that's so important, is that everybody who is concerned about making sure our elections are fair and free, step up, and if you can help, volunteer, because it is such an important thing. Thank you.
And we're down to the final of our questions that were submitted ahead of the forum tonight. And the last question will start with Supervisor Gulley. And it's, please share your views.
I went last, I think, but
Am I?
okay, then it's me.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
I, I went away from chicken scratches after my early blunder and have gone to initials, so I'm pretty sure I'm right.
Okay.
The question is, please share your views on intergovernmental cooperation and how the county would work with other units of government in your administration.
So I have to say, I was a little bit naive to discover that there is not a terribly strong working relationship currently between the city and the county. Like many things, being someone that wasn't born and raised here, I don't tend to see those separations. People talk about the city versus the county, and I understand their logistical issues, but I think that it really involves communication. I think that it involves pulling together the leaders of those municipalities. I would imagine, much like as a county board supervisor, 90% of what we talk about are shared concerns. It's 10% that may be district specific, but taking the approach of what are our goals together is how we bring people together. There also are always competitions over resources and small disputes, but I believe that if you build that working relationship strong from the beginning, you can bypass some of that.
One of the most important parts of being a county exec is working together with the different levels of government, so federal, state, and local, and then across the aisle. Over my 20 years, I have built relationships with every single community in Kenosha County, and in Racine and Walworth County, and in Waukesha County. But it is so important that you have those relationships with the local municipalities in this role. Because when a tornado comes and you don't know when it's going to come in January, or flooding comes and you don't know when it's going to come in July, it's being able to pick up those phones and call those local municipal leaders, be it from Salem Lakes and Diane Tessar, Howard Skinner in Twin Lakes, Bob Stoll in Randall, Sue Crane in Brighton, John Holloway in Paris, George Stoner in Summers, John Steinbrink in the village of Pleasant Prairie, and Mayor John Antranium, who's sitting in the back. It is important to be able to just pick up the phone and call and say, I've got a problem. How can we work together and collaborate to bring the resources here? And then work with our community business leaders. If, like in flooding, I picked up the phone and called Phil Hunt here at Uline and said, we need boxes, tape, gloves, shovels, cleaning supplies. Those are the types of things when you're county exec that you have to do. Oh, thanks.
So many times communities have competing interests, but at the end of the day, all the community leaders have to protect their tax dollars. The the previous comments were correct, that there was a breakdown in between the city and county communications, but I hope to restore that. I have property in the city of Kenosha, so I'm vested there. I'm on Village of Pleasant Prairie boards. I'm committed to that. I'm on nonprofit agencies that service provide services across the county. Currently, the county executive has the the Council of Governments meeting. He holds those twice a year, and I'm always amazed at the issues presented there that have that commonality. So let's collaborate. Let's bring those issues to the forefront. Where can we use our resources? One of the examples is our joint services system. When I'm traveling across the state and I tell them, oh, well, joint services does that for us. It's our joint records management system for law enforcement here between the sheriff and the city, our two biggest users. And they're like, oh, that's unique. So let's save taxpayer dollars on collaborating and finding out what the issues are. And I hope to have those relationships to grow my existing ones, to create new ones, and enjoy all those names that Representative Kerkman listed.
Very good. Well, thank you very much, candidates. As the infomercial says, wait, there's more, but kind of speed things up a little bit with the questions that were submitted. Todd kind of looked through them, and the one that kind of came through several times, and we'll just use that one. So for this portion of the program. So you ready? And we'll be starting with Supervisor Kerkman. Quality affordable housing is in short supply. Do you have a view on how we can fix this issue?
It's my turn. I just wanted he had said super side. I just wanted to make sure
Yeah.
you had the right person.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So housing, correct, is a very challenging issue right now. One of the things that I've been talking out to constituents about this particular issue is we have such a low housing stock right now. There's no places to rent either. I have reached out to the Landlord Association and to the Realtors Association, two groups that care a lot about this issue and how we can work together and partner. I talked to them about the Landlord Association about possibly creating a website for housing that might be available in the county. People don't necessarily know where to go. You can Google housing, Kenosha County, but you get a whole bunch of ads and you don't know necessarily if it's available or not. Maybe adding to that dashboard and putting a tab on there for housing in the county, I think would be important, because again, it's a challenge that many people who are wanting to come here to work at the great jobs that we have don't have access to quality housing here in Kenosha County.
Affordable housing goes across so many different areas. What's affordable to you might not be affordable to someone else. So I want to delve into it one step further, is that even if it's affordable housing, it has to be adequate housing. And I'd like to see our municipalities holding some of the landlords more accountable in ensuring that it's adequate housing, that it's safe housing, and that the people paying rent are A, held accountable, but B, also provided common luxuries, running water, heat, working lights and electric. When I sit in small claims court, there were commonalities across a number of tenants saying they promised this and never went through with that. So holding those landlords accountable to those regulations, and some of those are state regulations that have been minimized over the course of the year. But again, so affordable housing goes more into the picture, and Kenosha is experiencing that level of the housing shortage in terms of property. That doesn't mean that housing isn't available.
So first off, Zillow exists. You can send your constituents to find that. They can find any property and whether it's available or not. This issue is something that requires a triage. This is an absolute emergency for the county that has incredible impact on economic development it also has incredible impact on our social services. I work with a couple of the homeless agencies in town, and we have limited homeless shelter capacity right now because people are entering those shelters and they don't have anywhere to go. And so this is multi-dimensional. It's both affordable housing, it's both housing that will enable economic development. And so I would gather very quickly the municipality leads as well as our housing developers, our landlords, and put together an actual plan that said, this is the need and this is how we get there. It's going to take, this is a huge one that's going to take an absolute prioritization and a triage.
That's the end of all our questions. So at this time, we'll go into the closing statements. And each of you will have 2 minutes to make your closing statement. And we'll start with you.
I thought I was last, but
Oh, wait,
Okay.
okay. Oh, we can do it. It's okay. Start with yeah.
Okay.
Sure. We'll go from left to right. Huh? It's
Okay,
right to
well,
left?
my left to right. Far
again, thank you for all attending this evening online here in person and engaging yourself in this upcoming election that Kenosha County hasn't had to experience for 20 years. Uline has a beautiful venue here, and I appreciate them hosting this. County government is the front line of services where the needs of our citizens must be met in a way that's efficient, effective, responsible, and impacts the greater good of our community in so many different ways, from roads to our amenities to the required governmental services. We need to expect a high level of collaboration, and you'll get that along with my dedication and passion to making this our best community ever. As I stated earlier, my ongoing involvement in community service and various organizations demonstrates my love and passion I hear in Kenosha. Our conversations we've had here tonight, I hope continue into the future regardless of who wins. But my management and personnel management and my $1 million budgets that I've been responsible for the last 20 years is part of my background that makes me the most qualified to be our next county executive. So I appreciate your support. I appreciate your time. If you need more information, rebecca@kenosha.com. And I urge each and every one of you to go out and vote on February 15th and then again on April 5th and continue to play an active role in our county government because that's what we need here to make our community stronger.
Kerkman?
All right. Well, thank you so much, Pete, for moderating tonight, and the Kenosha Area Business Alliance, Becky and Todd for being here tonight and bringing this forum to our community. We've covered many important topics tonight that are important to the residents of Kenosha County, and I look forward to continuing these conversations over the next weeks. I've been out. Together, we can build on our successes and create more opportunities to maintain our high quality services for our families and our neighbors, and ensure that the taxpayers are protected by keeping an eagle eye on the bottom line. I'm excited to continue the hard work for the people of Kenosha County and will serve this wonderful place that I've cherished my whole life. My experience and my leadership from Madison are fundamental to achieving the goals and accomplishing even more for Kenosha County. Thank you, thank you, thank you to everybody for coming tonight. And please remember to vote on February 15th. For more information, please check out my website, votesamanthakerkman.com. And again, thank you.
Supervisor Gulley?
So I'm going to go back to a question that I was trying to answer and I got cut off because of time, but talking about that D&I position evening at the county board. And I want to share that because it was an incredibly painful and very representative evening to kind of show you what goes in at the county board. And so the real negative impact for the community on that night was that all that discussion while it was going on, the county actually had data that indicated challenges within minorities that work for the county. and that data was not revealed. And so those 2 nights of anger and division where people sat on one side of the room based on who they thought they were, who they weren't, that could all have been avoided. The even bigger crime for all of you sitting here is that that discussion occupied the entire time that the $306 million budget was discussed. Not a single other item in that budget was discussed by the board. That is a failure. And that is because of the partisan gridlock that exists at the board. And that's why I'm asking you to support the one independent, nonpartisan candidate up here. Because if you elect one of the partisan candidates, that gridlock is only going to continue. I hope you'll check me out more, and thanks. I'm asking you to hire me to be the next Kenosha County Executive.
All right, well, let's give everybody a round of applause. In closing, I just want to thank all the candidates for being here tonight and for throwing your hat in the ring to run for county executive. Want to thank again Uline for hosting us, and thank Pete and the Kenosha News for partnering with us and moderating the forum. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here. Remember to get out and vote. Thank you.